Hey guys, today I'm going to be doing a film review for A Single Man, and this is directed by Tom Ford, and it stars Colin Firth and Julianne Moore, to name a few. And Tom Ford, if you don't recognize the name, is actually a fashion designer, so this is his big directorial debut. And in a way, you can kind of tell that this movie is directed by a fashion designer because it is absolutely gorgeous in terms of its art and, well, just its artistic direction. This movie delivers on every note. And what the movie does so well and what it's meant to do is kind of represent all of our inner complexities as human beings and all of our interior motives, I guess, through the kind of vivid sense of imagination. And this is also represented through the character of George, played by Colin Firth. George is an English professor and he lives in California, and this takes place in the early 1960s. And the character is gay. And he had a partner who he was in a very loving relationship with for many, many years. And he died in a car accident several months prior. And ever since then, George has not been able to pull himself out of a state of misery. He keeps all of his sorrow and his hatred and anger with the world just kind of coiled up inside of him. And he just lives life every day, just kind of very lethargically and in this state of misery all the time. His heart is broken, as you can imagine, and he just cannot pull himself out of this just sorrow that he's in, and he just can't move on with life. And this movie takes place all in one day, and it does have transitions with flashbacks and such, but overall, yeah, this movie does take place in one day, and it's kind of, this one day represents kind of how he lives his life since the accident and how everything that he does is very perfect, precise. Every hair is in place. He is a perfectionist. Everything is perfect. Because when he gets up in the morning, he has a system of how he gets ready in the morning. He goes to class, he lectures, teaches his English classes, everything. He's got a wonderful system here. But, all of this, as he's doing it, he keeps himself very pulled back because, of course, he's very sad. He's a wreck emotionally, but everything he keeps inward because he's extremely shy and he's very introverted. And so this is really reflected in the filmmaking because whenever you see moments that are just including the character himself, the movie is very gray and it's got this very kind of lethargic tone, and it's almost very methodical in the way that it's shot. But there are certain moments in the film where everything just becomes, there are certain occurrences where everything just becomes lush and vivid in color and in imagination, and it's just kind of a representation of how he feels at certain moments of the day and depending on what things happen to him. And there's, I guess, a certain amount of theatricality, which kind of fits in with his fantasies and in his dreams. And so, yeah, that's kind of what this movie is, and I think it's absolutely wonderful in those terms. And what makes the movie so special, I think, is Colin Firth. He is wonderful in this movie, and I think he will definitely get an Oscar nomination because he is that good. Because, of course, I said before, the character is very shy, very introverted, and he plays the character so well because he handles the performance with such grace and such intelligence. But one of the hardest things for an actor to do is for them to really convey emotionally what's going on screen. They can deliver as many lines as they want, but there are some performances, this one in particular, where the inner torment that he carries throughout the film must be visible on screen, and you can see that always in his eyes. He can convey so much through his eyes. It's incredible. He looks into the camera and there's such heartbreak and sorrow and even hints of anger there, but he keeps it all pulled back and he's very presentable. And I don't know how he's able to do that, but it's incredible to watch. And I think this movie, he was born to play this role. This movie is tailor-made for him. I think this is maybe one of the best performances he has ever given. And I just think, he's really wonderful. And he is able to just play the part, and you can see him really struggling with his sense of self because This movie takes place, early, as I said, in the early 1960s, and at that time, it was very difficult for a gay man to kind of live and express who he was. I mean, it's difficult now, but I can't imagine what it must have been like then. You didn't hear about those things. People didn't talk about those things. It was almost shameful. And so, I mean, people have complained. I've heard several complaints that this movie moves very slowly and that it's kind of boring at parts. And I didn't see it that way. I saw it more as, whenever you want to do something but you're afraid to do something, you kind of hold off and kind of have inner conflicts with yourself on whether or not you should do it. And that usually happens for a prolonged long length of time. And he does that as well. You can really see him kind of with all this conflict within himself, and he's kind of very insecure and unsure of himself and what he should do. And that is represented through the way that this movie is made, which I think serves perfectly. This entire movie, the way that it was shot, really does show that the director has an understanding of the human condition and what we're like. I've also heard some complaints that the movie is very visual and doesn't really dig into who the character is emotionally. And I can see where they're coming from to a degree, but also I think that the representation of all of his inner conflict is seen through the character of Julianne Moore. And that is kind of the little break in the movie where you see kind of real sorrow, because she's a character who kind of tried to fall in love with his character many years ago, but it just didn't work out. And she is all alone. She has no one, really doesn't have any friends or anything, and she is just drunk all the time. She, does her makeup and makes herself look as beautiful as she can, and she spends all this time trying to make herself look perfect for this man, and she knows that their love will never work out. And all of the sadness and torment is seen with her, and when the two together, visit with one another, it gets very heated, and it just turns into this really heartbreaking conversation. And so that's what I saw with this movie. Of course, he is very pulled back, and he keeps everything just kind of inside, and all you can really see are hints of him kind of starting to lose it and really just saying that he's done with the world, but it's in those scenes with Julianne Moore that really make it work. And as I said, I think this is really a great movie. I think it may be one of the best of the year, honestly, and I think that you should see it if you're really into kind of art cinema. And for Colin Firth, he is really, really great in this movie, and if you really want to see a great Oscar-nominated performance, then this is the one. And yeah, so that's what I have to say, so I hope you go see it.